and welcome back to another episode of EmpowerHer podcast with London and London. We hope everybody's doing good today. Um, whew, it was quite a weekend for myself. Before I start yapping, because I do this every single time, I just get to yapping, and I don't even let London say what's up to y'all. So go ahead and tell the people what's up, London.
Hey guys, we did have an amazing weekend. I want to talk about the weekend, but we do have somebody else that we have to introduce.
Absolutely. And we are going to get to our special guest in just a second. Um, so yes, like London said, it was an amazing weekend, a lot going on. I know that y'all have heard me say it. If you ain't heard me, you're gonna hear me say it again. That I'm expecting a little bundle of joy. And this past weekend, we had her baby shower, and it was just so beautiful, so perfect. I felt so much love. And in addition to that, my husband and I, how do I say this? We got married again. And I know that sounds very strange. So technically we didn't get married again. So we got married last year of August 15. But of course with COVID and all that craziness, we had a very small, intimate ceremony. And this year we plan to have the big reception and kind of say our vows over again for everyone to see. So we did that on Saturday, baby shower on Sunday. So it was one
on
heck.
Monday.
It was one heck of a weekend, and I want to say a special shout out to London, our other host of Empower Her podcast, who was present, and more than just present, she was the coordinator for the wedding. And y'all know how she always talking about she's shy.
I
And
am.
she got public speaking anxieties and all that nonsense she be talking about. But this girl, when I tell you that she coordinated that wedding like no other, she held that mic down, she kept everything on track, and I'm just so grateful that she was there. I appreciate you and I love you, and I hope that you had fun because I sure did.
I did. I had an amazing time. It was just so good to see you guys. Like I told you earlier, the way you guys love each other, you literally can see it. Like you could feel it when you walk in the room. It was just
Oh.
like, and you look so beautiful. Like, I don't even think I've ever seen a pregnant woman just do it so elegantly. And like, you look so beautiful in your dress. And then the next day, and it was just so nice. Everything was just so well put. I really enjoyed myself.
Oh, thank you, baby. Lord knows I was tired. But
Yeah.
but luckily it didn't kick in till about the end of the night. Like so God gave me strength that day because we was ripping and running, and
Girl, we said
y'all
that.
know the devil showed up. Y'all know the devil done showed his ass, but the God prevailed as he always does because everything worked out just fine as it was supposed to. So but enough about us and our weekend. So today we have a very special episode, and you know that normally we gear the show towards women, and we're always giving a woman's perspective as London and I are women. But today we're going to be discussing the Black man. And we're lucky to have a very special guest on the show today, and that's going to offer a man's perspective on a topic that has everything to do with men, particularly Black men in this case. So everybody say hello to Mr. Richard Reid.
Hey, how we doing? How's everybody?
We are doing good. We're so happy that you are here today. Thank you for joining us. Before we jump in, do you mind just kind of giving our listeners just a little bit of your background, who you are, why you joined the show?
Yeah, sure, not a problem. Again, my name is Richard Reid. I prefer to call Rich, or whatever flows natural. I want to say it's really nothing much to me, but the fact that I'm a simple Black guy that's actually out here enjoying life, looking for nothing but positive vibes, and finding all means to give back to the community. One of the things that I actually do get a kick out of is actually mentoring. Like I mentor a few teenagers. I'm actually proud to say that I got one of my mentees into college. He's now attending, or he will be attending North Carolina A&T. So I was like that.
Okay.
I felt like that was a great accomplishment for this year for the most part. But other than that, I guess I'm just as average as they come.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. We're very happy that you're joining us today. As I said, we have a really juicy topic, and our listeners, this topic actually was inspired by Mr. Richard Reid, or I'll go by Rich, since you said you like Rich, right?
Yeah, you call me Rich.
All right, Rich. But this topic was inspired by Rich. He on what was the Instagram that I was looking at, and I saw a post that was kind of talking about the notion that men, particularly Black men, is what we're going to be discussing today, but the notion that they should not be expressive of their feelings and their emotions, and that they, have to be the rock all the time. They have to stay bottled up to keep a sort of composure. And I definitely have a lot to say about it, because I don't think that it's very fair that, we're always telling women that they're allowed to express themselves, they're allowed to have feelings, they're allowed to be vulnerable, allowed to have emotions. But I don't think it's the same, concept when it comes to men, particularly Black men. So before London and I kind of give our take on it, I want to hear from you, Rich, and just see what are your thoughts about this topic?
Um, uh, First and foremost, it's definitely very controversial because it's like, there's not enough men that's going to actually speak up and say what I'm about to say. But reality is, it's the truth. Like growing up, I come from a single parent, who, whereas I have five brothers. And my mom was like my dad, like she held it down.
Yeah.
Um, One thing with her, I want to say she never really knew how to be a dad. And with them, but by that I mean like I never really had the opportunity to express, my thoughts or my feelings. It's like every time I cried or every time I felt at something, there was never a safe place where I could go and speak to her and say, "Hey, this hurts," or I'm confused about this. It was always man up. And I feel like, that's not words of encouragement. That's just basically telling me just to suppress everything and continue to keep going. Where in reality is when you become a full grown adult, it's hard to make the right decision because all you've been told was just to man up, man up, man up.
Right.
What and, an unpopular opinion is that men don't think off emotions; we think off logic. Reality is that's false. We keep our emotions bottled up for a reason, to the point where we don't realize that we are doing more damage to ourselves than to others. And there's been multiple instances where a man will get so fed up with life, just in general,
Mm-hmm.
and the moment that he lashes out, he's immediately looked at as a monster or a bad person or a
Mm-hmm.
psycho. When reality is that he's just as human as the next person. It's just that we as a race, I mean, or as a gender, wasn't taught those skills, wasn't taught how to process our emotions.
Right. Definitely. And I definitely agree with everything that you just said. And even with me being a woman, I sympathize with that. Because I do have a husband, and my husband also comes from, a family that is kind of firm on, the man being the rock, and the man, having to have composure, and, no matter what gets thrown at him, he has to take it. And I just think that that's not, first of all, men are human, is the first thing that I will say. Just like a woman is human, a man is human. And just as a woman has the right to express her emotions and to feel, just in general, to feel emotions, I believe that the men should definitely have that same respect. And I like how you mentioned that, sometimes people look at a man as a monster, or he's crazy, or he's a psycho if he just, lashes out. But if we really think about it and we trace what is going on here, if we're bottling up all these emotions and the man is being told, hold your composure, don't lash out, don't do this, don't do that, eventually what's going to happen? Think about a soda can. When you keep shaking it, keep shaking it, keep shaking it, once that lid blows, what happens? It's going to pop. So
Exactly.
it's not right to tell them to keep bottling things up, and then when they do explode because they can no longer contain these emotions, now we're looking like, oh, this man is emotional, he can't control himself, he can't control his feelings, he's a monster.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I definitely think that just as women, when we hold things in, and our trauma and things that we go through, it's going to pop up when we lock it away, or we try to lock it away, only for it to pop up back again. And it's not healthy. It's definitely messing up your mental space, is what I will say. And that can be mental and physical. The effects of that, keeping things bottled up and not addressing your trauma, not healing from it, and not letting that pain go. It's very important to address it and not to internalize your feelings. And I think that it's not fair, like you said, it's very controversial that it's okay for a woman, but not okay for a man to feel and to be human. And there's kind of this notion that you're weak if you're expressing your emotions, right?
Exactly.
And I have a
And
question.
go
Yeah.
for it.
My question, because again, I like to play devil's advocate.
Here she go, y'all.
Who said that black men are weak when they express themselves? Who said it?
Society, black women themselves. You're too emotional. You're too sensitive. It's like, why do I got to be sensitive when I'm telling you, as a person of my liking, the things that you do or the things that take place in my life definitely affect me in a way where I don't know how to process it. If I'm coming to you and I'm telling you that, I expect, us to come together and try to work on it together. But in most cases, a lot of women don't want to hear that. It's, oh, just be a man. Go do what a man do. Go act like a man. Go do whatever it takes that man do to get it out their system. It's like, what does that really mean?
But could it also be the women that, in that sense, aren't really I want to say, how can I say it? Because the reason why I ask is because it's like when you say like society don't accept black men being emotional or vulnerable. What about when a black man gets with someone and the woman is encouraging them to heal, and then they still choose not to heal because of whatever reasons, because they feel like they're gonna be looked at a different way, or they want to fit in with their friends and stuff like that. So is it society that tells black men that they can't be vulnerable, or is it the fear of vulnerability that stops black men from being vulnerable?
And I'm gonna jump in really quick there, but Rich, before I let you speak on that, because I do understand where you're coming from, London, and I do think that we have to be very mindful of kind of generalizing this and saying that, oh, it's all of society or it's all of women, and we want to be really specific, because it's not all of society and it's not all of women, because as you said, there are some women that encourage it. And they want to see that out of their men. They want to see that out of their fathers, their brothers, their spouses. But then you have the men that are, like you said, fearful of being vulnerable, out of the fear, for fear of looking weak, or being said that they're weak, or being told that they're weak, or they're not strong, or they can't handle life. So in turn, they're not a man, quote unquote. So I definitely think that we can't just generalize it and say all of society, but I will say that I have seen and spoke with and heard numerous women to say, I don't want my man to be emotional. Like, I'm the woman. I'm supposed to be the emotional one. He shouldn't be crying. I should be crying, and he should be wiping my tears, that kind of thing. So it definitely goes hand in hand between it. If we're saying who's kind of at fault for this, definitely the man and the woman can be at fault for this. So I'll let you speak on that, Rich.
No, so yeah, I definitely agree. Both parties are accountable, but to touch bases with London, if the guy has a woman that's accepting of him being vulnerable and he's afraid to be vulnerable, the man has to be now be fully accountable because that's communication. Female says, hey, you got a lot of going on. I see it. Talk to me. Offload it. If he chooses not to, that's a problem that he has to see for himself. What most women don't understand is that most men only prefer to confide in with their boys because that's the only thing they can relate to. They probably been disappointed in the past by a woman, whereas they just don't feel comfortable being vulnerable.
I definitely agree with what you're saying, and I think that it's just very important to address that trauma and to heal from it because, as we said, trauma can affect us in our relationships with our significant others, our family, our friends, on the job, all of that. So
it really does affect every aspect of your life.
Every single aspect, right? So
exactly.
Just as human beings in general, I think that it should be across the board, man, woman, everyone, it should be acceptable to have not only express those emotions, but to have those emotions, not to internalize them and not to be frowned upon or looked at in a negative way because you are, like I feel men should be able to have breakdowns. I'm a woman and I have breakdowns. So, and just as my husband is there for me to let me cry on his shoulder, I am more than willing to be there for him and let him cry on my shoulder. But there are lots of women that don't see it that way. There's lots of women that see that as you don't need to be crying on my shoulder because you're the man. You're supposed to be lifting me up. So I don't want to be with you because you're weak, And I don't think that that's okay.
We're so glad that our product is getting so much love. Head to our site and make sure you pick one up before they're gone.
So I would say, why do we think that this is going on, especially in the Black community? Why do we think that it's not acceptable for, from both perspectives, from the man's perspective and the woman's perspective? Why is it not culturally acceptable for men to have these emotions and to express themselves? Like, where is this all stemming from?
I'm sorry, I have to definitely take it back to like history, where colonizers came into, our homes and separated us.
Yeah.
I want to say that, we as men had to watch our women be stripped and raped by these individuals. And then to the point where women was taught to turn against us just so, we can go out there and by any means of survival, to the point where that fear took over. And that fear taken over, with them developing some type of fear that if they show any type of remorse to any man that's being emotional or expressing themselves, they didn't want to be too looked at as being weak. I can say that, and yeah, I'm gonna say that. But then it evolved. It definitely evolved, like in the homes, like whereas I have a sister, on my dad's side, whereas I witnessed how she was able to communicate effectively and express herself in a way whereas she was listened to, whereas, me and, my brothers, it was just like, what you crying for, man? Get up off that ground, suck it up. But it's like, if she falls and she feels the exact same pain I do, it's okay for her to cry.
Right.
But it's not okay for me to process those emotions and let it out. So, I think, addressing childhood trauma as well as researching where everything is stimulated from, which I can date back to history itself.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I like that kind of example that you gave with your sister and how, if she falls, it's okay for her to cry, and you fall, you both are feeling the same exact pain. Y'all both got the same scar, but dad is telling you, chin up, young buck, be a man about it, brush it off,
Right.
And I think London, that kind of stems back to our discussion about generational trauma, and how that's passed on from generation to generation, and here we are now. And I think another thing that we can kind of stem this to and kind of relate it to is the how it's culturally unacceptable to go to therapy. How it's unacceptable to seek help when you do have these things going on, when you do have trauma. I believe it was on, what was it, our first or second episode, I think, that we were discussing this, and how our Black community kind of turns away or shies away from seeking help, getting help, therapy, from generations ago, how,
My dad, I'm not crazy. I'm not going to no therapy. What's wrong with you?
yeah.
You don't need to be going to therapy. What's
Right,
wrong
like
with
life don't be life.
right? Like, why you going to therapy? Ain't nothing wrong with you, girl. Ain't nothing wrong with you. Just go talk to Jesus.
Yes, it was so frowned upon, for us to be going through stuff, to really have something that we're in our lives that's affecting us so much that we need to go talk to somebody else. It was like, you don't need to talk to nobody. Like, you're fine. We don't need people looking at you like you're crazy because you're in therapy. But that's such a negative connotation of it, because therapy it heals when we discuss these things. Yeah, we have to address these things, and healing isn't easy, but it's worth it. So taking that leap.
I feel like it might be a little bit easier for us to go to therapy too if there were more, and like you said, how you said culturally acceptable for us to go or not to go,
Yeah.
but also
Yeah.
like, I don't want to say the therapy out here is culturally unacceptable, but how can they relate?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, in some sense too, I can see why some people choose not to go to certain therapists, because it's like, you want me to go to this person who has absolutely no experience in what I've been through, but because they read a book, they think they understand me. So I guess that's kind of hard too. So it would really help our community if we had more relatable therapists out here. Like, my therapist, I love him to pieces. Like, I absolutely love him to pieces. He's Hispanic, and I don't love him just because he's Hispanic, but I love him because of the way that he can relate to me and my life. And then the way that he's helped me along the way that he's helped me process my emotions, the way he's helped me process like things that I'm feeling and identifying those things, is like, he's just been so amazing. But I went through a lot of different therapists before I got to him. At one point I even gave up. So it's like, I feel like if we had more relatable therapists out there, it would be a lot easier for us to seek it.
Yeah.
No, so I definitely agree. The thing is, you have to want it, meaning you first have to try. You can't continue to shy away or just go with the first person that, you get paired with. It's a business. At the end of the day, you're the customer, you're the client. It's a business. If you don't like who you're working with and who you're talking to, find somebody else. Keep finding somebody else, because until you find somebody that's relatable. Because again, I too had to do the same thing. And I see two people, a guy and a girl, a married couple. And it's really dope, because it's like I can just shoot the can with them and I get both perspectives immediately. Like, going to therapy started out with me just sitting there and they're just interrogating me, getting me to open up, trying to figure out what's going on. I will do the questionnaire on paper and be like, you know what? I answered all of those questions on the paper. Why are you asking again? To the point where, I finally got paired with two people that actually understand, who I am and my background, as well as the vision that I have moving forward. And I get it. People are afraid. I don't want to be looked at as crazy. I think therapy is for white people. We Black people, we're not out here doing, all of these half the crazy things that white people are doing. But at the end of the day, we're still going to war with ourselves. The devil is still attacking us mentally, to the point where we're sitting there stuck and dealing with depression. Well, people fail to understand that statistics shows that depression and anxiety hits heavy and harder in the Black community than it does, in other communities, because it's like they're the ones, or their parents sees it, and and try to get them help at an early age. Whereas, we wait till, we're out, fully grown and just trying to figure it all out. Like
Yeah.
I honestly find it to be completely attractive whenever I'm talking to a young lady, and the moment she mentions she's in therapy, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't care what's her story. I don't care what it is that she's, going through at that given time. What I care most about the fact that she knows that she's not perfect and she's willing to, eliminate all her demons as possible. And because, I too, I am on that journey. And, again, therapy has been the most successful thing that, I got into. Like, yeah, I cry, I toss things around, I curse, I yell, I fuss, and they sit there and they listen. They're not there to judge. They're there to give you the first and foremost. They're there to listen. Two, to give you the tools that you need to be successful. And then, again, it's not hard. It's really easy. You just have to be comfortable with understanding that this is your life and your life only. And everything that you're holding on to doesn't really mean anything. Does not contribute to your life. And that's what I tell everybody. It's like, when somebody say I'm not crazy, why would I go to therapy? But I'm like, it's like this: would you go to a tattoo artist who doesn't have tattoos? Would you
Right.
go to a doctor that doesn't have certifications? Like, it's not as simple as just reading a book or just seeing somebody sit on the couch and just talk to somebody. Like, no, they dig deep. They ask you questions that you ask yourself, because what they want to show you is that, you are not the only person that's going through it.
Yeah.
But I will do say that the biggest challenge is actually finding somebody relatable. But, you got to do your homework. You got to, take the first step and go showing your face. Ask them questions. Like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
therapist loves that. Because it shows that, you're serious about healing. You're serious about the things that you want out of life. And
Yeah.
when you find that right therapist, you will know, because it's like, you know what, damn, where you been at my entire life? How
Mm-hmm.
come I feel comfortable talking to you versus just talking to somebody I speak to every day?
Yeah.
So I'm all for therapy. I love it.
And I love that you said that. And I took a lot away from what you just said. And two things in particular is that you have to do the work. And that's what I'm hearing from you, Rich, and from London, that from both of your experiences, that you have to do the work. You have to be willing to do the homework and to try and to find that good fit for you. And like some of my churchgoers, y'all can kind of relate with this. The first church that you went to, like, oh no, this ain't it for me. But then you bow out and now it's, nothing at all. That's not how you do it. You got to try things on. Just like when you go to the store and you try shoes on, you got to try shoes on until you get to the right fit. You get what's going to, what fits for you. So it's the same thing with therapy. You have to be able to be willing to put in that work to find what's going to work for you. And Lord, all that talking you was doing, I forgot the second point that I was going to talk about.
My apologies.
No. I appreciate it because you said so much and there were so many good points in what you were saying. And yeah, I definitely took a lot away from it. And I hope that our listeners are listening. And I'm just very happy that we have a male here today to kind of give us the male perspective on this, because like I said in the beginning, a lot of times it's just London and I giving, our perspective as a woman. And it's really refreshing to hear, this perspective of a man, especially on
Well, I
this
have a
topic.
question. A good
Yeah,
question too, like what you was just talking about. But for those who don't know, especially within our community, because you don't know what you don't know, especially if
right.
you don't have the resources or the tools provided to you. As a Black male, what advice would you have or can you offer to a young male in our community, and how, like, in terms of giving them guidance? And I'll give you an example. For me, I had this one lady in high school, and I went to Park East High School, and I was in a STAR program, and she just saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. And I was like just angry and just bitter and just hurt and just mean and cruel. And she saw it and she saw past it, and she told me that I was better than that. And I feel like had she not said that to me, had I not had her the last 4 years of my teen years, I probably would have gone down a different path. So she really helped me out. And then from there in college, I had somebody just like her, but in college. So, and she's still in my life now. And they helped me and gave me those resources that I need and guided me. So as a mentor, what advice can you offer to our community, especially our youth?
Okay, that honestly, that's easy. Practice self-awareness, learning to identify who you are as well as things that you want out of life. Whatever you have, whatever you're going through, create a goal to accomplish it. Break that big goal into small goals and take steps. What this actually does helps build confidence, because now you are now confident that you can achieve this goal of yours. And the more you practice that, the more you become disciplined. When you become disciplined, you're now more confident with who you are as well as the things that you want to get done. It's like an everlasting circle. Like you got to start with self-awareness, set a goals, set many steps to achieve their goals, reflect on those goals, realize how far you've come, appreciate the steps you've been taking thus far, continue to build confidence, and again, self-reflect again and start all over. You have to have that tough conversation with yourself. What is it that Richard, wants? What is it about, my life or, the defense of my life that I'm unsatisfied with? What is it something that I can do to, get from point A to point B? And you got to love yourself. Like,
Yes.
therapy is a huge form of self-care. Like, how would you know what real love is if you can't experience it just for yourself or within yourself?
Yes, 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 yes. All I can say is yes. That was great advice, Rich. And again, we just truly appreciate you being here. I know that our time is almost up, so I'm just gonna say a few things to the Black man, if I can, and then London, I'll let you say whatever you got to say, and then we're gonna go ahead and wrap this episode up, y'all. But to the Black man, I just want to say, and this is actually to everyone, not even just to the Black man, but particularly that's what we're talking about today. So I'm going to address y'all. Pay attention to what is triggering your trauma and learn from it. Don't ignore it, because it's not going to go anywhere. And you can't ignore it forever. Eventually, it is going to pop up. It's going to show up in your relationships, whether that's with your significant other, your family, your friends, on the job, wherever. It's going to come back up. Healing isn't easy, but it's worth it. And as Rich and London said, you have to be able to put in that work to let that pain go, because your mental health is important. It's very, very important not to internalize those feelings. And you can't heal what you don't feel. So know that it's okay to feel. If it hurts you, you're allowed to feel it. Okay. Don't let anyone tell you that you cannot feel or that you are weak for feeling, okay? You're not weak, you're human. And it's okay to be human, and it's okay not to be okay. So please take those steps that you need to get that help. If you're with somebody that's telling you as a Black man that you shouldn't be feeling like this, you shouldn't be having those feelings, you shouldn't be expressing emotions, I'm sorry, but you need to leave that person, because that person is not for you. They're not good for you. And that's all I got to say on that. London.
Girl, you always do that. Now I don't have that else to say. That's like a good summary. What am I supposed to say after that?
I think so. I do have some closing remarks. It's not that if someone say you shouldn't feel this way or you shouldn't be able to express yourself. I think the determining factor is if someone tell you can't. I don't approve of you doing that. Then that's how you know that person isn't the one for you, and you need to, separate, like leave immediately.
Big facts.
And then I think it's also important too to piggyback off of London really quick. Just learn your coping mechanisms, because it's one thing to know your triggers, and it's one thing to understand and not be able to identify them. But then you also want to make sure you incorporate some coping mechanisms so that when those triggers do come up, you don't just keep running away from them. you know how to deal with it. And then kind of also ask yourself, why are you attracting those kind of people that aren't that's not allowing you to open up too? Like, where does that stem from? How does that come about? And why are you attracting those kind of individuals? So you want to be more aware of that as well. So awareness is key.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Agreed, y'all. I think we done said it all. And I think that this was a great topic for today. It's definitely something that needs to be discussed more. So I'm glad that we were able to talk about it today. Again, Rich, we just want to thank you for being here. We really enjoyed having your input and your perspective, male or female, you know, just having someone else's perspective on the show. We're always welcoming that. So again, to our listeners, if anyone has something to say about this topic, if you have a perspective you want to share, a story you want to share, just something to say about this, of course, let us know. We're always going to drop our links in the video, as well as under our videos. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Of course, follow our Instagram. You can always comment on there, send us a DM, email us. You know, so many different ways you can get in touch with us, but we definitely want to hear from you. And again, thank you, Rich, for being here. London, it was another great show. Of course, thank you for playing devil's advocate, as you always do. Always. She always coming with the but hello. Every single time, and we love it. So thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of Empower Her podcast, and we'll catch you next time.